We're talking about the pastor's life. What a journey. What a ride. The pastor's life, being formed, forged, transformed, and formed the way God wants you to be and what God wants you to do. What a blessing it is. And as we explore the nuances and the currents of the pastor's life, I realize that there's a lot more that will come to you as you experience this calling, more than learn about it before you get there. Now, some of you may have been pastoring churches for 20, 30, 40 years, or maybe you're in the first year of pastoral leadership. Maybe you're serving as a missionary, or it's entirely possible that you're not sure whether God has called you into the pastoral life. But in any case, this moment and these opportunities of talking about the pastor's life can serve as a very important help to you as you walk the journey. My hope is to be able to provide for you some handholds that, at least in my life, I've been able to experience, and as I've reflected, prayed, thought, and worked with many, many pastors around the world, been able to distill some points that I'm hopeful will be a blessing to you, particularly following the first chapter of Mark. We started with the idea that these external signposts are going to point you in the right direction, someone else announcing or someone else declaring that you'd make a good pastor. And then that inner witness where God really cements and crystallizes, and it's almost like the voice of God coming to you internally that holds you and clarifies that call for you. This time I'd like to talk to you a little bit about forging the call. And forging the call is absolutely essential in order to provide strength that will withstand the years of circumstance that will test this call. You know, much like any alloy or metal, it's forged. I don't know much about metals and steel, but I do know that the forging process is the process of purifying, securing, strengthening, confirming, and it happens often in very difficult circumstances of heat or pressure. Well, forging the call of God in your life to the pastor's life, to pastoral ministry, is much the same way. We look back to the first chapter of Mark and we realize that John the Baptist gave an external signpost announcing Jesus. And then at his baptism, that clear, crystal clear, clarion call of God in his life. And then immediately after that, he went out into the wilderness where he was tempted. And you can read these passages even as you reflect and write in your own journal. This temptation of Jesus matches or is a pattern or a template that every pastor also follows, because some may point you in the direction of pastoral ministry and you may experience that inner witness of God where God calls and others affirm that call. But often it's the forging that becomes the most painful and difficult, because forging the call of God in your life usually happens when you are alone, even potentially lonely, when you have extricated yourself from all of the outside systems that normally support you, when you are under pressure, and sometimes when there's intense temptation. You see, Jesus was in the wilderness, alone, tempted by physical needs, and yet this call was being forged, clarified, and confirmed in Jesus. Likewise, there are going to be moments when, after you have heard others tell you you'd make a good pastor, and after you have even experienced this inner witness of God's call in your life to the Levitical priesthood that we talked about last time, you're going to find yourself in moments when you are going to be alone and you're going to be under temptation. You are going to be under pressure. Those are not moments for you to go back and question the call, wondering did I hear it wrong? Was it somebody else's voice? Was I just wanting to do this? Or maybe it was just bad pizza that I had the night before that experience. It's not the time to question the call. It's a moment to embrace the pain, to pull it in close to yourself, to recognize the alone moments of forging, to realize that the heat is on, to accept and recognize the temptation, but to anchor yourself in that clarion moment that you know that God has witnessed in you that you are called to pastoral leadership. You see, forging happens when you are apart from your support systems. Sometimes it happens when you're away from your family. It might happen when you're away from your discipleship group. It might happen when you're in a different city or traveling somewhere where these things begin to happen. Or it may be a longer, more protracted experience in which the pressure or the temptation or the intensity of the moment begins to actually cause your sense of confidence in your call to shake and maybe even waver. That's the forging process of heat and pressure in which the purity, the anchoredness, the strength of your call is forged and clarified. In my own life, I remember that early in my ministry, my family and I were actually traveling far away from the local church where we were. And another important part about this is that this isn't just a one and done thing. It doesn't just happen once that you go through a forging. It happens repeatedly throughout your ministry. We happened to be traveling far away from the home church where we were. And there was a lot of pressure going on at that home church, as many of you can imagine sometimes happens in churches. Criticism, pressure, division, struggles within the church. The burden was heavy on my shoulders and our family. We were feeling that burden intensely. And it wasn't anything that was particularly pleasant by any stretch of the imagination. We happened to be traveling to do some ministry, and in that period of time, those days of being away, I got a phone call from someone else on another part of the country inviting me to a wonderfully safe, secure, growing profession, job that would have had a future in a completely different area of leadership. I had been schooled in that area of higher education. So it wasn't something that was out of the ordinary. It was certainly something that would have been logical. But in the moments of being alone, sitting in the evening on the floor next to the bed, listening to the phone call, the invitation, come to a nice, secure community where your children can be raised, where you can enjoy the fellowship, where you have the confidence of this large institution, you have a strong paycheck and a great income, you will immediately be recognized, and so forth and so on. What a temptation to exit the pressure and the heat of the circumstances of pastoral ministry in that moment, and to go to a safe place, not only for my own reputation, not only for my own peace of mind, but for my family and for my children and for a completely different career path in leadership. What a temptation. But in those moments, together with my wife and family, we began to probe the depths of that inner witness of God and the nature of that call to pastoral leadership and pastoral ministry. And in that moment, we realized that the call of God that we had experienced, that I had experienced many years previous, was simply being refined and confirmed and forged in deeper and deeper strength. You see, forging happens when the pressure is on. Forging happens when the temptation comes, just like in Jesus' life. And those are moments that will secure and deepen your call to pastoral ministry like nothing else. Don't immediately assume that these are signals that you need to leave the ministry. Of course, the idea is not to hurt yourself or to put yourself in situations where you are being abused or damaged. So if you're not sure if this is a forging process, then I ask you to please reach out to wise counselors and wise others who have been in ministry, pastoral ministry, perhaps longer than you. Ask for their prayer. Ask for their insight. What is this? Is this a signal for me to move away? Is this a signal for me to embrace the pain and allow this call to be forged? Because often the forging happens under pressure, in pain, and sometimes in temptation. Each time that we've been together, I've been asking you to write in your journal. I hope you're doing that, because these are moments and thoughts that you can carry with you for the rest of your ministry career and the rest of your pastoral leadership. I'd like you to do that this time as well. Take your journal, find a place by yourself, reflect and pray, and I'd like you to write in your journal a little bit about those moments when you can recall where your call was clarified. Those experiences where your call was tested, forged, but where it came through in clearer fashion. Recall those moments. Write about it. Thank God for those and ask God to use those in your pastoral leadership going forward. And may God be with you.